Ho, 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 and Merry Christmas. I know what you may be thinking. I know you may be like taking a look at your watch and going like, this woman has lost it. It's November. Why is she wishing me a Merry Christmas? Well, as you can probably tell from the background of my video, I am one of those people who starts celebrating Christmas the day after Halloween. Yes, that is my Christmas tree. I spent all day setting it up. And as I was setting up my Christmas tree, an idea flashed through my head. I thought, wouldn't this make a beautiful video for YouTube explaining the symbolic meaning behind the Christmas tree? Because you see, the Christmas tree is a crazy rabbit hole. Not many people know this, but it is. It is one of those rabbit holes without a bottom, where the more you scratch, the more you dig, the deeper it goes, and it seems like it's never going to end. I don't even know if I have gotten to the bottom of it yet. So that's what this video is about. So we're gonna tackle this like an iceberg meme. There's like a little tip over the surface, which is the Christian meaning of the Christmas tree. So we're gonna go over the symbolic, like the Christian symbolic meaning. But then we're gonna take a plunge below the surface and we're gonna look at all of the insanity that lies beyond that. For example, what is the thread that ties the Christmas tree to the Big Bang? What does the Christmas tree have to do with Plato or with Kabbalah or with ancient mythopoetic systems? Well, let's untangle it. Ho, ho, ho. So first, we're going to tackle the surface meaning of the Christmas tree with the Christian interpretation. So yeah, and we're going to use this as an excuse to explain what makes a Christmas tree. Because, if you look up Christmas tree on Google, you're going to get 1,000 images of trees that are quite different from one another. And still, I think we can identify a pattern underlying all of it. The elements that are constant and that we can say are what makes a tree be a Christmas tree. So first, we have the fact that it is a specific type of tree. You cannot have a Christmas cactus, okay? If you're hanging twinkling lights to a palm tree, what are you doing? The Christmas tree has to be an evergreen conical tree like the fir or the pine tree. And it is for a reason. You see, from the Christian perspective, these trees symbolize Jesus himself because they are always green. Even in the middle of winter, when everything withers and dies, the pine tree, the fir, they are still lush and green and very much alive. So it's kind of like a light in the darkness, same as Jesus Christ. But there is also another interpretation or another layer of symbolic meaning, and it's because these trees are conical in shape. They're like a triangle. And the triangle is one of the oldest symbols for the Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They form a triangle. So these two things make the Christmas tree have a Christian foundation. And then we have other elements. For example, the tree is topped by either a star or an angel, and they both represent the same thing. The star represents the Star of Bethlehem, and the angel represents the angel who told the people the good news that the Son of God was going to be born, right? So these two elements are also represented in the Nativity of Christ. And then we have all of the ornaments that we hang from the tree. And we have a wide variety of ornaments. We can find almost anything you can think of as an ornament nowadays. But at the beginning, at its origin, people usually would hang apples from the tree. And also, these garlands around it that were like spiral in shape. And we can see how this is also a symbol or a parallel for the Garden of Eden, because in the middle of the Garden of Eden, there was the tree of life. And from the tree of life hung the forbidden fruit, the apple that Eve and Adam ate. So the ornaments hanging from the tree represent the apple. The tree represents the apple in the Garden of Eden. And the garland that snakes around the tree represents, of course, the snake. So there you have the Christian most superficial and shallow meanings for the Christmas tree. And they're there. But there's more under the surface. Think about this for a second. If you want to encode Christian beliefs into a tree to celebrate the nativity of Jesus Christ, would it make sense to make the apple, temptation itself, be such a prominent feature on the tree? Would you feature the snake on the Christmas tree if you're celebrating Jesus? Isn't this a little bit Gnostic? Let's dive in to the first layer of meaning beyond the surface. So when you see how there are so many symbols that are Gnostic embedded in the Christmas tree, you start to ask yourself a few questions. And I think a lot of the people who go all satanic panic with the tree and say that it is a pagan symbol, that they're trying to co-opt Christmas, I think at their core, they suspect as much. And so this is what gets you digging. And when you realize that it is quite a recent addition to our Christmas celebrations all across the globe, and it was only really made popular, in the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, and especially by whom? The House of Windsor. You start to look at things with a little bit of a suspicious eye, and you start to see puzzle pieces everywhere. But, I found a bunch of clues, and I want to give them to you so that you can skip all of that part of the process. So here we go. The Christmas tree is not really a static symbol, like the cross or like an angel or something. It's actually a diagram. It is a timetable. It is a story, is what I'm trying to say. It is a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it unfolds from the top to the bottom. The story begins at the top of the tree with a star, and it ends at the bottom with the gifts. And it is encoding ancient mystery symbolism. And, once you start seeing it this way, you realize that you have seen the image of the tree, but in very random places that look like they have nothing in common, that they couldn't be farther from one another. For example, the Big Bang timetable. If you place the image of the Christmas tree and the Big Bang side by side, you realize that you're basically looking at the same thing twice. You have to rotate the tree, of course, or the timetable. But you see how they both begin with a single point of light at the top, and then it unfolds in a conical shape towards the bottom. And we see how there are stars and orbs springing out of that dot down all the way to the bottom of this tree. And when you look at this, you can think, oh my God, this is just a huge coincidence. The cone is not such an odd shape. And, this could just be a fluke. But then you realize that the person who came up with the Big Bang idea was actually a Jesuit clerk. It was a man named Georges Lemaitre, and he came up with the idea of the primeval atom that exploded, giving birth to the entirety of the universe of creation. So it's not that the Christmas tree was an inspiration for the Big Bang, or that the Big Bang is an inspiration for the Christmas tree. It's that they're both echoes of something far older that is informing both things at the same time. And it is the story of manifestation. We can see the story of manifestation from God being a single point to all of creation, the multiplicity of creation in so many different religions and mythopoetic traditions, like Neoplatonism, Gnosticism, most of mystical schools, Kabbalah, etc., etc. And that's what we're going to explore next. So let's go to the third and final layer of our exploration. This is the galaxy brain stage, right? We are going to go over all of the elements of the Christmas tree again with new goggles, and we're going to see what it reveals about the beliefs of the occult. So first we have the tree. We said it was a conical evergreen shape. And what matters here is not the triangle, like in the superficial Christian reading. And it's not the fact that it is evergreen. I mean, sure, those are also valid interpretations of the symbol. But what matters here is that it has the shape of a cone, okay? The cone is a critical symbol for divinity. We can see this represented in so many different ways. For example, what is the cornucopia but a Christmas tree? It starts in a single point, it opens up in the shape of a cone, and it is filled with gifts, just like the Christmas tree. The cornucopia was critical in the Orphic mystery school. I'll explain that later, put a pin on that. But we also see the same shape in the bells. What is a bell but a conical shape? And it gives us the gift of sound, right? When it moves, it makes a sound that emanates out of it. Bells are very important in most religions. What is the trumpet of the angels? But the same idea, a cone. So why can we see or find the cone in so many different religions and traditions? What makes it such a special shape? Well, let me explain it to you. The cone is also, by the way, it's also codified in the circumspunct, I think it's called. I don't know if it's the same in English, but I don't know if you have seen that symbol that is like a point inside a circumference. And if you are into, for example, astrology, you will know that this is the symbol for the sun. But it is also a symbol of divinity. It is a point in the middle of a circumference. Well, that is also a cone. It's a 2D representation of the cone. Why? Well, the cone is one single dot that opens up into a circumference. And it represents it represents the Trinity, but it represents the Godhead, really. Because first comes the first point. It is a single called the monad, okay? This is God. It's like the first thing that ever existed. It has no dimension. And therefore, it can only be represented by a single dot. And for a while, God is everything there is. It is all included in a single dot, just like the Big Bang, just like the primeval atom, right? But then, God wants to manifest the world. And he cannot do this unless there is a space that he is not occupying. Because if God is everything, then there's no dimension. There's nowhere he can pour light into to manifest reality. So God needs a space. And that space is what we call the cosmic womb, which is represented by the circumference, right? It's the goddess. And then the conical shape comes when the one pours all of himself into the womb and turns into this conical shape. We can see it easily. If this is difficult to grasp, if it's too abstract, we can see it like the cinema, right? In the cinema, we have a projector. that it's like a single dot of light where the whole movie is contained within. And then, but the projector on its own cannot show you the movie. If you want to experience the movie, you need a screen. And the screen would be the womb, the cosmic goddess. And then, once you have the screen, the projector can project its light onto the screen, revealing the movie manifestation. So if we were thinking of this in terms of the Trinity, that would make God would be the projector, and the Holy Ghost would be the screen, and Christ would be the light, the movement, right? The movement that goes from the single spot to the circumference, creating a shape like a trumpet. And it's really important to understand that this is not a static image. This is movement. This is happening constantly, all the time, every second. This manifestation is being manifested. So it's really important to understand that the conical shape is a shape of emanation. It's continually being emanated. And that is why the body of this trumpet is motion. It's motion. It's vibration. So we see how this makes sense in light, for example, of the trumpet. The trumpet, God's breath, is that which, when he casts his breath, by blowing into this trumpet, then all of reality is manifested. So that's why it's also a trumpet. And manifestation, we can see this in Genesis, in the Bible, right? Manifestation begins and follows a path from the one to multiplicity. And at the end of it, there's all the gifts, there's, as God manifests, it becomes different realities, right? Multiplicity of realities. So we see how in the tree we have the stars are represented by the lights, by the twinkling lights. They represent the stars in the sky. The star at the top of the tree is the monad, God. And his light comes down to the tree in these twinkling lights that represent the cosmos, right? The stars, but also the light of God. And then all of the ornaments that we hang from the tree are this multiplicity, all of the shapes that God takes on as he manifests reality. The spheres, like this one, right? These spheres, they represent the celestial spheres. They represent the planets, Venus and Saturn and Mercury and Jupiter, right? They're represented by the spherical ornaments. And then at the bottom, we have the gifts, right? The gifts on the bottom of the tree represent manifestation, our world that is full of gifts that come from this emanation. And here's how we can see that this diagram is not particular of the Christmas tree. We can see the exact same thing in the tree of life of Kabbalah, which begins with a single point called Keter, and it emanates down into the bottom where we have Malkuth, which is the gift, the fruits of the tree, our manifested reality. So you see how all of this is contained within the tree. And when we talked about the snake before being the garland around the tree, it is very interesting to know that in the mystery schools, the reality was born out of an egg called the cosmic egg. And the cosmic egg was wrapped, the snake of time and causality was wrapped around this egg called Ananke. And Ananke is, some people translate it as destiny, but other people translate it as inevitability. It is actually, I think, we can understand it as the passage of time. It's the same idea behind the circumambulation of many religions, of going around a single center. That's the idea behind the garland around the tree. It's telling you this is a story of time. This is a story that unfolds across time. This is not a static symbol. There's time going on here from the top to the bottom. And all of this is encoded in the Christmas tree. When you put up the Christmas tree in your house, it is both an image of Christianity and of Christ, because Christ is the light of the projector being projected, right? Christ is the light of the world, in the sense that it is how the monad, it's the movement that allows the light of the monad to travel down and impregnate, the cosmic womb with manifestation. So it is a Christian symbol, and it is a pagan symbol, and it is an occultic symbol, all wrapped into one. And the important thing here is that whenever you put up a Christmas tree in your house, you're celebrating reality. You're celebrating the universe, creation, manifestation, and the fact that you're here and you're alive and you're going to make it through the winter, and you're going to be, and you're going to be wealthy and good and well. Even in the darkest hour, you can see how life has a wealth of gifts to give you. And that's why I love the Christmas tree. I hope you like this video, and I'll see you again soon. Oh, by the way, before I forget, do subscribe if you like my video. I am still new to YouTube, and I love to see the number go up. And if you want to know whenever I post something new, make sure to subscribe to my newsletter that you can go to by going over here. And I'll send you an email next time I publish something. Merry Christmas!